Have you ever thought about what life would be like without water? Imagine waking up, and there's no river, no lake, no water from the tap. The plants start to wither. The animals have nothing to drink. And people can't survive without it. This was the fear Kian's village faced when their once mighty river began to dry up. How did it happen? Why was this precious river, their lifeline, disappearing? And what could one young boy possibly do to save it? This is the story of Kian's journey to protect what his village could not live without. The river that gave them life. In a small green valley, nestled between two rivers and surrounded by mountains, there was a village called Rivertown. Rivertown had always been a place of abundance. The rivers that bordered the town flowed through it like silver threads, giving life to everything they touched. The people, animals, and plants all depended on this water, and for as long as anyone could remember, there had always been enough for everyone. In this village lived a boy named Kian. Kian was a curious 12-year-old with a deep love for exploring the fields, splashing in the river with his friends, and hearing stories from his grandfather, Old Liran. Old Liran was a fisherman who had spent his life on the river. His face was weathered like an old tree, and he always had a story to tell about his time on the water. Kian adored these stories, but one hot summer afternoon, he heard something in his grandfather's tone that made him feel uneasy. As they sat on the riverbank, Old Liran looked out over the river and sighed. "The river is tired, Kian," he said, a shadow falling over his face. Kian was puzzled. The river had always been there, strong and steady, giving life to everything around it. "What do you mean, Grandpa? The river's right here, as big as ever." Old Liran shook his head, his voice soft and full of worry. "It may look big now, but when I was your age, it was twice as wide. We didn't think twice about catching fish, swimming, and using water as much as we liked. But every year the river's flow has gotten weaker. We've taken and taken. And now—" He trailed off, looking at the slow-moving water. Kian felt a pang of sadness as he looked at the river with new eyes. That night, as he lay in bed, Kian couldn't stop thinking about the river's slow decline. The thought of it disappearing made his chest tighten. Why was it happening? And could he do something about it? Early the next morning, Kian woke up before dawn. The village was still asleep, the only sounds being the rustle of trees and the quiet trickle of the river. He set off on a journey to find out more about water and why it was disappearing. The first stop was the village library, a small, cozy building full of dusty books and the smell of old paper. Mrs. Myra, the librarian, greeted him with a warm smile as he approached the shelves filled with books on nature and conservation. "What are you looking for, Kian?" she asked, noticing his determined expression. "I want to learn about water, Mrs. Myra. I want to know why the river's drying up," he said, his voice filled with purpose. She nodded, handing him a book titled The Secret Life of Rivers. "Start with this one, and let me know if you have any questions," she said, giving him an encouraging pat on the shoulder. As Kian read, he learned that water was essential to every living thing. Plants, animals, and people all relied on it for survival. It flowed through rivers, lakes, and underground, moving through every part of the ecosystem. But water wasn't unlimited. He discovered that rivers could dry up if people took too much, or if the surrounding land wasn't protected. Kian was captivated by the way water worked, like a quiet, powerful thread connecting every living thing. But he was troubled too. Rivertown wasn't the only place facing problems. In faraway lands, people struggled every day to find enough water to drink. Some walked miles each day just to bring back a small jug, while others lived in places where clean water was a luxury. And here he was, surrounded by rivers, yet seeing them slowly dwindle. Kian decided he needed to see the impact for himself. Over the next few days, he traveled around the village, observing how people used water. He visited the farms where large barrels of water were used to keep the crops green and lush. He noticed that some fields were overwatered, with puddles forming in the soil, wasting water soaking into the ground. Then he visited the town square, where a large fountain sprayed water high into the air, glimmering in the sunlight. It was beautiful, but he couldn't help thinking about the people who walked miles for a single drink of water. Is it fair for us to waste so much when others have so little? He wondered, feeling the weight of this new understanding settle in his heart. Later, Kian went to see the village council. They were a group of wise elders, respected for their knowledge and experience. He explained what he had learned, and though his voice trembled at first, his passion grew as he spoke. The river's drying up because we're taking too much without giving back, he told them. And it's not just us. There are people far away who don't have enough water at all. We can do better. The council listened intently, impressed by Kian's insight. They realized that the village's approach to water needed to change, but they also knew it wouldn't be easy. The village was used to abundance and comfort, and asking people to cut back was going to take effort and cooperation. One of the council members, Elder Toma, proposed a plan. They would create rules to help the village use water more responsibly. Each family would have a daily water allowance, and the farmers would be taught new ways to water their crops efficiently, without waste. The fountain in the town square would be turned off except for special occasions, and the village would start a tree planting program to protect the riverbanks from erosion. Kian was thrilled. He could already picture the difference these changes would make, but he knew that getting everyone on board would be a challenge. So he volunteered to help spread the word, determined to show the villagers why these changes were necessary. With the council's support, Kian went door to door, talking to families about the importance of saving water. Some people were skeptical, used to having plenty and wondering why they needed to change their habits. But Kian shared what he had learned, explaining that every drop saved was a step toward a healthier river, a stronger village, and a fairer world. His efforts were met with mixed reactions. Some villagers were quick to adjust, turning off their taps sooner, fixing leaks, and being mindful of their usage. Others were more convincing. One farmer, Mr. Bren, was especially resistant. "These new rules are ridiculous," he complained, waving his hands in frustration. "I've been watering my fields this way for years, and it's worked just fine." But Kian didn't give up. He showed Mr. Bren techniques he had learned from his research, like drip irrigation, which allowed water to reach the roots of plants without any waste. Eventually, Mr. Bren gave it a try, and to his surprise, his crops stayed just as green while using far less water. He thanked Kian, and from then on he became one of the village's biggest advocates for water conservation. With time, the villagers began to see the positive changes. The river's flow became steady again, and even during the dry season there was enough water for everyone. The fields were lush, the animals healthy, and the people felt a renewed sense of connection to their land and to each other. But the biggest change of all was in how people viewed water itself. It was no longer taken for granted but treated as the precious resource it was. Parents taught their children about the importance of conserving water, and Kian became known as the village's water guardian, a title he wore proudly. Years later, Kian's story spread to neighboring villages, inspiring others to take responsibility for their water resources. People came to Rivertown to see the changes for themselves, amazed by the transformation that had taken place through the villagers' efforts. And Kian continued his work traveling to nearby towns and sharing his story, his heart set on teaching others that water, though abundant in some places, was precious and finite. With each drop saved, each river protected, he felt closer to fulfilling his promise to the river, to let it live, breathe, and give life for generations to come. As he stood by the riverbank, now wide and flowing as it had been in his grandfather's youth, Kian felt a deep sense of peace. He had learned that responsibility went hand in hand with privilege, and that every small effort made a difference. In his heart, he knew he was part of something greater than himself, a story of life, growth, and respect that would be passed on to others, just as his grandfather had passed it on to him. Water was life, but it was also a gift, one that needed care and protection. And thanks to one boy's journey and a village's united effort, the river and the people who depended on it were given a chance to thrive again.